The factory was like another member of our family as we grew up. Its buzz and hum seemed as familiar as the voice of any relative. When I was only a child, Dad founded it and built it from the ground up into a name that all the local supermarkets wanted to carry. It was up to my brother David and I to continue things after he went away. Are you prepared to step up, Gina? On the day we took over, David had stated, "This isn't kid stuff." Even though he was just 3 years older, he occasionally behaved like a stern old man. "Yeah, I've been ready," I said, feeling more assured than I actually was. Well, I was content to stay in the background and manage the staff and make sure everyone was where they needed to be. David had always been the public face of the company, interacting with suppliers and customers. Our abilities complemented one another, and we collaborated well. The factory was operating more efficiently than before, but what about personal life? That was a different matter. I wasn't particularly gregarious. I preferred quiet nights at home over gatherings for networking or parties. Meeting Tom altered that. I have vivid memories of that evening. I let David take me to a business mixer on one of those few occasions. At the bar, I was sipping my drink and making plans to get out when Tom sat down next to me. He responded, "You look about as thrilled to be here as I am," with a smile that surprised me. Unsurprised by my own candor, I answered, "I'm just here so my brother stops nagging about my hermit lifestyle." He said, "Ah, siblings can be like that. I'm Tom, by the way." He held out his hand. "Gina." His hand was confident but not overbearing when I shook it. As a journalist, Tom covered local business, including my family's cookie empire, presumably. He was astute, skillfully navigating subjects from everyday to intimate with his charm and wit. I was laughing more than I have in months before I realized it. Tom joked, "You really should let me write a piece on you. The air's behind the cookies," or something like that. So I assumed he was kidding. "Let's not," I murmured, sounding harsher than I meant to. "I prefer keeping my life out of the papers." He nodded and did not press, which I liked. "Fair enough," he said. I was reluctant at first, but Tom persisted. At first, his communications were lighthearted and playful, but they eventually became more regular and intimate. Eager for the diversion from the daily grind of work, I found myself waiting for them. David saw how I had changed. He approached me about it one evening as we were wrapping up the office. Without holding back, he questioned, "Who's the guy?" "What guy?" I made an effort to maintain a neutral face. "Don't act foolish. You've been grinning at your phone as though it were a romantic letter. Leak it. Tom, the reporter from the mixer, is here." "We've been conversing," I acknowledged, anticipating his response. David scowled as his defensive tendencies kicked in. "Gina, just use caution. He smells like money and possibility, which is why guys like him." My heart was full of optimism for the future as I walked down the aisle toward Tom 6 months later. Despite his displeasure, Tom signed the prenuptial agreement which David had proposed. I reminded myself that it was only a piece of paper, a precaution we would never need. I had faith in us and the potential of our relationship. It was a wild beginning to life with Tom. All of a sudden, I was a part of a world of glamour, frequently at a distance from the photographers who took our photos when we were at prestigious events. Tom loved being in the spotlight and took advantage of any opportunity to improve his internet visibility. Tom was fretting more than normal one evening as we prepared for another large gala. He displayed a blue tie and a silver tie. "Which one?" He mused aloud, truly conflicted. "The blue. It pops on camera, but the silver is flashy, good for photos." "Choose the blue." "It fits you better," I answered simply, focusing more on how comfortable my heels were than the color of his tie. Tom took a couple pictures in front of the mirror before deciding to go with the blue. On his blog, he shared them along with a comment, "Which tie?" Assist me in making a decision. As the replies came pouring in, he grinned at his phone. These gatherings made me feel uncomfortable. I frequently found myself hidden away in a corner, watching the throng rather than joining it, while Tom mingled. Occasionally, he would visit me to see how I was doing, becoming a little more enthusiastic as the wine ran. "Gina, you ought to do some mixing." One evening, Tom pushed, his voice a little slurred. "People are dying to know more about the woman behind the cookie empire." I nodded, not wanting to argue. It was his night, after all. As he walked away, I overheard him telling someone about his expansive lifestyle that our marriage had apparently granted him. It irked me how we spun our life together into content for public consumption. As the months rolled on, the pattern continued. Tom's blog grew, fueled by snippets of our life he broadcasted. I became more reclusive, retreating into the sanctuary of my work at the factory. The cookie business was booming, and I threw myself into it, finding solace in the familiar chaos of production lines and staff meetings. David noticed the change in me. During one of our late-night check-ins at the factory, he leaned against a packing machine, a concerned look on his face. "You've been quiet." "Everything okay with Tom?" he asked, his voice cutting through the noise of the warehouse. "It's fine, just the usual ups and downs," I shrugged, not wanting to admit how strained things had become. "Gina, remember what I said. Money changes people." "Be careful," David warned, his tone serious. "I know, David. I'm keeping my eyes open," I reassured him, though I felt anything but reassured. As I drove home that night, the factory's lights fading in my rearview mirror, I couldn't shake the feeling that the glamorous life Tom so loved was more of a facade, and I was trapped behind it, playing a part I never auditioned for. We worked well like that, but when the need for a new finance director came up, it fell on me to find the right fit. That's how Emily came into the picture. She was sharp and had a knack for numbers that impressed even David, which wasn't easy. Soon enough, she was not just crunching numbers at work, but also a regular at our home during the late-night strategy sessions David and I held. Tom usually just hovered around these meetings, glass of wine in hand, barely hiding his boredom. He never really got the business, nor did he try to. But with Emily's arrival, there was a shift. I noticed how his eyes followed her around, lighting up whenever she spoke about financial forecasts or new funding strategies. However, Tom's interest seemed more personal than professional. I brushed it off initially, chalking it up to his usual charm. He always did enjoy charming, intelligent women, and Emily fit that bill. Yet something in my gut twisted a bit each time I saw them laughing together, a little too closely for comfort. One evening, after Emily had left and Tom was in his study, supposedly working on an article, I decided to clear the air. "Tom, got a sec?" I leaned on the doorframe of his study, watching him stare at his screen. He glanced up, a little startled. "Sure, what's up?" "It's about Emily." "You guys seem to be hitting it off," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral but firm. Tom raised an eyebrow, his fingers pausing over the keyboard. "What do you mean?" "We're just talking shop, business." "Yeah, I get that. Just seems like you're really into those conversations." "Just making sure that's all it is," I pushed, needing to hear him say it. He chuckled a bit too casually. "Gina, you're worrying about nothing. She's smart, got good ideas. That's all I'm interested in." As Tom went back to his typing, I couldn't shake off the discomfort. His reassurances did little to soothe the doubts creeping up on me. I found myself confiding in David more than ever during our late-night sessions after Emily and the other staff had left. "Everything okay with you and Tom?" David asked one night as we reviewed some shipment schedules. "It's fine. He's busy with his trips, and I'm here with the cookies." I shrugged, trying to sound nonchalant. David frowned, not buying it. "You know I don't like that guy much. Always thought he was a bit slick. Just watch yourself." "I am David." "Thanks," I said, grateful for his concern, but feeling the weight of my marital woes grow heavier. Despite this, life at home and work kept marching on. Tom's travels, for whatever stories he was chasing, became more frequent. Oddly enough, I was relieved. His trips meant fewer awkward dinners and less tension about him and Emily. I focused on the company, pushing those nagging thoughts aside. The factory was gearing up for a major expansion, and I threw myself into the work. The company was celebrating a record-breaking quarter, and David and I decided to throw a big party for the whole team. The venue was decked out, the music was lively, and the air was buzzing with laughter and chatter. Tom was there too, of course. He had his phone out, capturing everything for his blog. "This is going to be great content," he said, winking at me as he filmed the decorations and the crowd. I forced a smile, still uneasy about broadcasting our personal lives. As the party went on, I needed a break from the noise and slipped out to the quieter foyer. That's when I heard them, whispers that weren't meant for my ears. Curiosity piqued, I edged closer to the partition, my heart pounding in my chest. There was Tom, in a far too intimate embrace with Emily. The sight knocked the wind out of me, but it was their words that cut deeper. "Just wait till Gina's money hits our account. We'll be out of here, away to our dream house abroad," Tom whispered, his voice thick with greed and deception. Emily giggled, her voice tinged with contempt. "Can you believe how clueless she is? What a stupid chicken." The room spun as their laughter pierced through me. They were using me, mocking me. The pain was sharp, raw, and it burned through my shock. I stood frozen, the urge to confront them wrestling with the need to protect what was left of my dignity. I chose the latter, stepping back into the shadows before they could see me. My mind raced as I walked back to the main hall. I needed support. I needed David. I found him chatting with a group of employees, his laughter a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. Pulling him aside, I whispered urgently, "David, we need to talk." "Now." His face fell as he saw my expression. We found a quiet corner, and I poured out everything. The affair, the plans, their cruel words. David's face hardened with each word, his protective fury barely contained. "That son of a—" David's hands balled into fists. "And Emily. I can't believe she'd do this. We need to be smart, David. We can't let them destroy everything we've built," I said, my voice shaky but resolute. "You're right. We'll get the auditors on this first thing tomorrow. And a detective. We'll do this quietly, gather all the evidence we need to nail them both," David said, his tone ice cold. The rest of the night was a blur. I went through the motions, smiling and chatting, while inside a storm raged. Tom came up to me several times, oblivious to the fact that I knew everything. Each time, it took all my strength not to reveal anything. The morning after the party, I was at the office early. David had arranged everything. By the time I arrived, he said, "They'll be here in an hour. I've told them it's a routine check. Nothing to raise suspicions." "Good, we can't tip them off." "Not yet," I replied, trying to steady my nerves. The auditors were thorough. They set up in one of the conference rooms with stacks of financial statements, invoices, and bank records. I tried to focus on my work, but my mind kept drifting to the auditors and what they might find. Around mid-afternoon, one of the auditors called us into the conference room. "We need to discuss our preliminary findings," he said, his expression grave. The room felt suddenly too small, the air too tight. "What is it?" David asked, his voice tense. The lead auditor spread out several documents on the table. We found numerous irregular transactions. Large sums have been transferred to an external account over the past few months, here and here. He pointed to the highlighted lines on a bank statement. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Whose account?" I managed to ask, bracing myself for the answer. "It's registered under Thomas Landon," the auditor replied, looking at me, then David. My worst fears were confirmed. I fought to keep my composure. "What about any links to Emily Rogers?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "We're still looking into that, but given the patterns, it's likely we'll find a connection," the auditor answered. The next few days were a blur of meetings with lawyers and more sessions with the auditors. Each new piece of evidence was a stab in the heart, but also a building block towards the fortress of my revenge. I knew I had to be strong for myself and for our family's company. As the auditors wrapped up their investigation, the private detective David had hired came in with his findings. He laid out photographs and receipts on David's desk. Pictures of Tom buying a luxury car and expensive jewelry, not for me, but for Emily. "And there's more," the detective said grimly. "They booked tickets to Mexico 4 months from now. Looks like they plan to drain your accounts and run." David and I exchanged a glance, the final pieces clicking into place. "He's also signed a contract with a major media company in Mexico," the detective added. The betrayal was deeper than I had imagined. Not only was Tom stealing from me, but he was also planning a whole new life with Emily, funded by the money he took from my company. Armed with this information, we finalized our plan. Legal and financial traps were set, quietly ensuring that when Tom and Emily tried to make their move, they'd find themselves with nowhere to go. The end of the year was approaching, and it brought with it the perfect opportunity to set my plan into motion. I decided to host a pre-Christmas celebration for the company. It was an annual event, typically a time for cheer and toasts, but this year it was the stage for my carefully crafted retribution. The venue was a well-known restaurant, beautifully decorated with twinkling lights and festive garlands. Employees milled around, laughing and chatting, completely unaware of the drama about to unfold. Tom arrived, looking as dashing as ever and completely oblivious to my plans. He went straight to work filming the decorations and guests, broadcasting live to his blog followers. "Looking stunning, babe," Tom said, coming over to give me a quick peck on the cheek before returning to his video. "Thanks, Tom. Make sure you get good shots," I said, my tone light, masking the storm inside. The evening progressed smoothly, and after dinner, it was time for the main event. I took the stage to give the annual awards to the employees. This was it. My heart was pounding as I called Emily up first. "Let's hear it for Emily Rogers, everyone, this year's standout employee," I announced, my voice steady as applause filled the room. Emily beamed as she walked up, clearly pleased by the recognition. I handed her a beautifully wrapped gift box. "Open it later," I whispered, and she nodded, oblivious to the trap. After a few more awards, it was Tom's turn. I saved him for last, making sure the cameras were still rolling. "And now for a special recognition. Tom, could you join me up here?" I called out, my voice echoing through the room. Tom looked surprised but pleased as he made his way to the stage. "What's this about?" he whispered as he joined me under the spotlight. "Just a little something to show my appreciation," I said, handing him a similar gift box. "Why don't you open it now for everyone to see?" Tom, ever the performer, played up his curiosity for the cameras, tearing into the wrapping paper. The moment the contents were revealed, his face went white. Divorce papers and photos of him with Emily. The room fell silent, all eyes on Tom. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. He looked around, desperate, but there was no escape. "Aunt Emily, why don't you open your gift now, too?" I called out, my voice clear and strong. With shaky hands, Emily opened her box, pulling out receipts for the car Tom bought her, along with bank statements detailing the stolen money. Tom, usually so composed and confident, stood frozen. The live cameras still broadcasting to his blog captured every moment of his disgrace. There was nowhere for him to hide, no narrative he could spin that would undo the truth laid bare before his audience. I took a deep breath and addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you're witnessing tonight is not just a revelation, but a betrayal of the worst kind." I began, my voice steady but charged with emotion. For years, this man, I pointed to Tom, and his accomplice, my gaze shifted to Emily, have been siphoning funds from our company. They planned to flee to Mexico, thinking they could escape the consequences of their actions. The silence was palpable, the crowd hanging on every word. Tom, regaining some of his wits, blurted out in a desperate attempt to deflect the blame. "It was all her idea. She seduced me into doing this." The accusations seemed to snap Emily out of her shock. She stormed onto the stage, her face contorted with rage. "You liar. You came to me with a plan. You said we'd be free and rich." She lunged at him, her hands flying as she slapped and scratched. Her voice pierced the stunned silence. The scuffle on stage was chaotic, with Tom trying to deflect Emily's blows and defend himself both verbally and physically. The spectacle was not just being recorded, but streamed live, drawing a massive online audience. David came up beside me, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. He then stepped forward, his voice booming over the microphone, cutting through the cacophony. "Enough," he shouted. "The police are already on their way. Both of you will face charges for fraud and theft. The evidence is overwhelming, and justice will be served." The police arrived minutes later, their entrance adding to the drama. They separated Emily and Tom, handcuffing them amidst the flash of cameras and the murmur of the shocked employees. This whole ordeal, broadcasted live, was a spectacle no one could have anticipated, drawing viewers from all over. As the police led them away, the room burst into whispers and murmurs, the employees processing the night's shocking events. I stood there amidst the chaos, feeling a mix of relief and profound sadness. What had started as a festive celebration had turned into a public unveiling of betrayal. The live feed was still running, and I realized the camera was focused on me. Gathering my composure, I addressed the audience directly. "Thank you for your support. Tonight was about bringing the truth to light, no matter how painful. We will rebuild, and we will emerge stronger." The support was immediate and overwhelming. Comments poured in, messages of solidarity and encouragement flooding the live feed. People praised my courage and even suggested I start my own blog to share my side of the story. David squeezed my shoulder. "You did what you had to do, Gina. It's over now." But as I looked around at the remnants of the evening, the decorations that now seemed garish, the empty stage that had just hosted a confrontation, I knew it wasn't over. This was just the end of a chapter. There was much to do, relationships to mend, and a company to heal. I filed for divorce immediately and sued Tom for the financial havoc he'd reaped through his deceit and fraud. The court ruled in my favor, and Tom was ordered to pay a hefty sum in compensation, money that would help stabilize the company's finances and ensure our employees didn't suffer because of his greed. Emily's fate was sealed in court. She was convicted of embezzlement, had to return all the stolen funds, and lost her financial license. The industry ban was the final nail in her professional coffin. Tom's life, meanwhile, fell apart in a dramatic way. After learning of his illegal acts, the Mexican media business, he intended to go to canceled his contract. Nobody else wished to come close to him. His professional network fell apart, and his reputation was poisonous. He was forced to shut down his blog as his fans turned against him, horrified by his behavior. Tom arrived unexpectedly one afternoon when I was in my office going over the quarterly performance reports. A shadow of the guy he used to be, he appeared dejected. "Gina, I'm so sorry. Can we have a conversation?" His eyes did not contact mine, and his speech was tremulous. I remained steadfast, the recollection of his treachery still vivid. "Tom, there is nothing to discuss. You ought to go," I stated firmly. "I've lost everything, Gina. Please, everything." He stepped closer, pleading I just need a chance to explain. I didn't move. "Tom, you had your opportunities. I have to handle my business now, if you don't mind." I contacted security without waiting for his answer. "Please escort Mr. Landon out." He had just departed. I felt a chapter firmly close behind me as I watched him being brought away. I returned my attention to my workstation, where the future awaited me, and it appeared more promising every day. After learning that Tom was trying to see me, David entered my office. "You okay?" he inquired, his face worried. "I'm all right, David." "Actually, it's more than good," I answered, a sincere smile lighting up my face. "It's over, and I'm ready to move forward." "That's the spirit," smiled David. "Speaking of moving forward, how's the blog idea coming along?" I gave a hearty nod. "Actually, I'm thinking bigger, a video blog or vlog to connect directly with our customers and share our journey. Transparency, recovery, innovation, make it a platform for dialogue." David's gaze brightened. "Great concept. It gives the name personality and personalization. Let's take a jump forward instead of merely getting back up." I had a fresh feeling of purpose as the vlog developed. I was constructing a community in addition to rebuilding a business. Every video we uploaded increased support and interest. People valued our candor and the steps we were taking to prevent future betrayals of this nature.